Sounds good. Well, hello and welcome to Minnesota Homeownership Center's Welcome Home podcast. This is the first episode of our season 2, so that's pretty exciting, at least to me. We got picked up for season 2. My name is Bill Gray, and today we're going to discuss special purpose credit programs and the center's work with Twin Cities Habitat for Humanity on this topic. Joining me are the two main brains behind this work. Shereese Turner is Chief Program Officer for Twin Cities Habitat, and my colleague Brooke Walker is Strategic Initiatives Director for the Home Ownership Center. Welcome to you both.
Thank you for having me, Bill.
Thanks. Okay, so as background, Twin Cities Habitat and the Home Ownership Center were recently awarded $1 million by the Federal National Mortgage Association, commonly known as Fannie Mae, to help create a regional special purpose credit program for Black homebuyers. The award was part of Fannie Mae's Sustainable Communities Innovation Challenge, which was designed to advance racial equity in housing. With Fannie Mae's financial support, our two organizations are co-developing a regional down payment assistance program to support foundational Black homebuyers, and that is those who self-identify as Black or African American descendants of slavery in the United States. This program will be based on a model recently developed by Twin Cities Habitat. So that's really interesting. Targeting support directly to African American descendants of slavery. And I hadn't heard that term before, foundational Black Americans. Shereese, Habitat has a head start on this kind of home buying support, right? You have a small pilot program in operation already?
We do.
And how's that going?
It's going really well. We started with a total of about 91 consumers that were already in the program. And we realized that they've already trusted to partner with us. So why not kick off this pilot working with individuals that were already in the program? And what we were able to do, and I always like to provide some context on how we got here, right?
Yeah.
Because I think this is really important. About 2 years ago, we partnered with Dr. Brittany Lewis to work with us on an engagement project, just to understand what was the experience like?
Right.
What worked, what didn't work,
right,
and why we wasn't seeing the same success, right? So it was important that we work with folks that were currently in our program, but also community partners to understand what is the perception of Habitat in our community, but not only in the community, but those that partner with us and why they wasn't having the same success as other demographics in our program.
Right.
We learned a lot from that project.
Yeah.
It was about a 9-month-long project, focus group base, and it was very intimate. They were able to be vulnerable and share their experience. And when I say it was hard to hear what that experience was like, it was. Yeah. Because Habitat has done some amazing work, not only here in our region, but internationally, right? And we have served primarily 85% people of color throughout our 38-year affiliate history. But where we were not having much success was with our foundational Black consumers. So we had to understand the why. And it was very clear to us that who we thought we were serving, we were not, because we need to first understand that Black is not Black. You see, the journeys are very different. It's very unique. Because if you understand, these systems that were designed with us in mind for us to not achieve success. And then we sort of adopted some of those same practices in our program, and we had to pause, understanding, why did we adopt some of these practices? Right. Not, intentional. It was unintentional, right? But we had to first listen and understand. Yeah. And that was the turning point for us. We heard directly from those that partner with us and understood what their journeys were like. And we took those recommendations, and Brooke would talk a little bit more about the gist of the special purpose credit program. Sure. But those recommendations really allowed us to rebuild a model that will help our foundational Black consumers achieve more or better success. So part of that was making sure that we have staff that are reflective of those that we're working with, right? That's important. They have to see themselves. I get it. If you're going to tell me this is how you take these steps to achieve home ownership, I want to first make sure, are you a homeowner?
Yeah.
But then also, that I can see myself in you as well. Journeys could be a little similar. I can learn something. You have a lived experience, and I think that's really important as well.
Right.
And then also understanding their just how life shows up for them, and it's a little bit differently. We understood that most of the consumers in our program were Black women, single head of household, right? And understanding that we had a sweat equity model that don't quite work with a single mom with two children, right? And I don't know about you, Bill, but I don't have 300 hours of vacation time that I can go and dedicate to building my house, right? So, and we don't currently have 300 hours, but we used to. Let me be very clear. We used to. So we need to understand kind of what the experience was like for those that were, who identified as foundational Black, and what the challenges and barriers were, and what we contributed to those challenges and barriers. So we had to pause and just learn from that and reimagine what the program model will look like going forward. So we took those recommendations based on what their experiences were, what the barriers were, and almost did the opposite of that, right? And this is how we landed with this pilot special purpose credit program to address what those unique barriers were, in hopes that they would have better success. And we've already had one homeowner before the new year close with the special purpose credit program, and we got about 5 more that are looking to close before the end of this fiscal year, which is June 30th. So we're pretty excited about this.
That is super cool, and we talk about systemic barriers, factors baked into the system that are stacked against certain groups. And it's sad, but it's not surprising that those things find their way into everywhere. Like you say, it's not intentional. It's like how things are done, and you don't think about it until you think about it.
Absolutely.
So that's super cool. So tell me a little bit about so we talked about who qualifies. I mean, what does this program do? How does it work? I mean, I think DPA is involved. Maybe not. I'm not sure.
Yep, it is.
Okay.
Yes. So we have a cohort support because what we heard from those recommendations that they want to see themselves kind of go through this with each other, right?
Yeah.
So we wanted to make sure that we had a structured cohort support, a place where they is safe. They can talk about the experience. We can talk about different topics that are very specific to their history. How did we get here, right? We're resilient, and making sure that we have those principles there too. So I'm inspired, I'm motivated, but you're going to also have people that are coming in delivering some of that with that lived experience too, that we can share information and be inspired by stories too. I think it's important that we honor stories. Any story that come in that space, you honor that, because the journeys are very unique to that person.
Right.
One shoe don't fit all. That was the main thing that we were trying to not do.
Right.
Is have a one shoe fit all approach.
Right.
Really see them and design a plan that was going to be unique for them. But the cohort support was really based on the recommendations we got from the Foundational Black Advisory Council, who felt like they needed a safe space just to share and learn and apply different strategies to their personal lives.
Right.
And then we do have a down payment assistance support as well, up to $50,000. I think our average for the first home buyer is about $35,000. So that's the other component. But then also underwriting criteria, understanding what the unique barriers were that prevented them from achieving home ownership. Let's take a little bit of a different approach to see how we're able to look at the underwriting and see where we can kind of refine some of that. I know part of it would be the alternative credit, because we were not counting rent And now we are, because if you're going to do alternative credit, you're calculating, cell phones and light bills. But why aren't you? Because we know with a single mom, a single Black mom, I'm not going to miss a rent payment. Right. You see, I may be a little late on a cell phone bill, but a rent payment I'm not going to do. Right. So why aren't we counting that as alternative credit? So that's kind of what we did with the underwriting.
Oh, I love it. It's so exciting, and it's so cool to be working with you guys to expand this concept.
Yes.
I'm watching this with great interest. So let's see. Let's dig a little deeper into special purpose credit programs, SCPs. SPCP for short. Brooke, you're kind of leading this work for us. Tell us what these are, why they're important, how they work, this kind of thing.
So I'm going to give a little context too. So while Shereese and Habitat were busy working on their, taking a look at their internal programming and how they could better serve foundational Black Americans, we too were trying to figure out how we could help advance homeownership in BIPOC communities, and did the research report with the Minnesota Realtors Association that I'm sure you've talked about on previous podcast. And we learned just how effective DPA could be. And through that journey and all of the conversation that's been happening here locally and nationally, and kind of in a different elevated way around the disparity in home ownership, this term special purpose credit continued to pop up. And, a lot of people think it's new, and it's actually not. It's a part of the 1974 Equal Opportunity Credit Act. And essentially, that act made it so that when you extend credit, you have to do it fairly. But it also put this special purpose credit provision in there that says we need to do something about the fact that we've left so many communities intentionally out of accessing credit and home ownership. So it gives nonprofits and private entities the opportunity to put forth programs like extending credit, like a mortgage or a down payment assistance program. And you can target a specific community as a tool to help kind of address the disparity. So as we know from previous conversations you've had, Bill, redlining and all of the things that were done to intentionally keep Black home buyers or Black communities out of home ownership, this is a way to correct that. So it's been talked about at a national level, I would say, for about almost 2 years, and it's picked up momentum. And so we were doing this work at the center about how do we do this? How do we better target down payment assistance? I mean, we have had down payment assistance programs in Minnesota forever, and we've used all these proxies, low income, where you live in a community, and all of these things have not worked. So similar to Shereese taking a look internally at their program, we just acknowledge that even though we've got great programs that are reaching 40% or 50% BIPOC communities, we're still not closing the homeownership gap. And when you look at that data at a closer level, like you guys did internally, and you don't just go under the bucket of BIPOC and you look at, Black foundational Americans, what you are seeing is that they're still served at a much, much lower rate. And so we were having these conversations, you guys were doing this work, and then this opportunity came along where we could apply together and say, we're both committed for advancing Black home ownership. We acknowledge that what's been happening is not working. How do we use this tool? And how do we learn from what Habitat has already done? So that's kind of how our partnership came together about 6 months ago. And we've been, I think, moving and doing some really exciting stuff in that space.
Very cool. So SPCPs are a chance, as I understand it, to, among other things, consider race as well as other factors in eligibility for these things.
Yes.
And that, you're saying, was supposedly okay ever since 1974.
Correct.
And we're in 2023, and we're talking about launching one. So progress. But do I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's been used. You'll see it more in small business.
Oh, okay.
So it isn't that it hasn't ever been used. It just hasn't been used in the homeownership space.
Okay.
And we do have some national lenders that are taking some steps, but they're not they're doing special purpose credit, but they're doing it by census tract. So if you live in this community
Right.
or you buy in this community,
And that's been going on for a while, right?
forever.
Yeah.
And now it's just kind of being talked
Yeah.
about differently. And what we're saying is it's not enough.
Yeah.
It's still not enough. We need remedies that are race specific, just as the barriers and the
Right.
laws that were in place that prevented people were race specific.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we have to be bold, and people have to understand that closing the racial homeownership gap benefits everyone.
Yeah, it
Mhm.
really does.
does.
It's so important. And
Mhm.
as we've said before, that gap has not changed. If anything, it's gotten wider in the last 50 years.
Correct.
So no, this will be really cool to watch. Do you think we're going to see more of these SPCPs in coming years?
I hope so. I mean, part of the work that we're doing, right? So Shereese talked about Habitat's program has kind of got many components, and we're just taking one of those components. And what we want to do is we want to pilot this at a regional level. So do a down payment assistance program and really do what we would call a demonstration project or a pilot, and show how we can work together in this region. So for the approach that we're taking for the Twin Cities Metro, we're working with partners and consumers similar to develop what this DPA would look like, how it would help kind of address barriers.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to work with those partners who have been doing this for a very long time. Build Wealth Minnesota, Twin Cities Habitat, NeighborWorks Home Partners, to actually pilot this and test this and see how it goes. And the thought is that if we can demonstrate its effectiveness, this can become a sustainable approach that we can use for the foreseeable future until we're at a place where the gap is closed.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that this is a beginning. I think we'll see much more of these programs come online. But we believe we have to start here, give it a try, demonstrate its effectiveness, and then really bring the resources we need into our community to make this happen.
Cool. Do you guys know if this is happening in other places around the country, or that we're kind of pushing the envelope here in Minneapolis, St. Paul, or?
There are a couple. So there is a foundation in, I believe, San Diego, and they are not technically doing a special purpose credit, but they have said we've raised private dollars and we're going to serve Black home buyers. And then there is a group in Colorado that is doing a special purpose credit and focusing on Black homeowners in a small community. So it's starting to happen on a small scale. But it's very few and far in between. It tends to be nonprofits leading the way in this space. But again, I think if we show that it works, and I think the more we've been talking about this, the more it's become kind of common language. And I think industry is starting to see we have to be serious and do something.
Yeah. I love that we're pushing the envelope.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. We talked a little bit about how you created the program that you do have and how that's working. This is a new program that we're working to put together and launch. I want to ask, how does a consumer engage in this? But the way I understand it right now is Habitat's working with their current clients.
Yep. Yes.
And our other program isn't ready for
I would say we're
applications
still baking.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So then once it is in place, let's talk a little bit about how it'll work, and you guys can play off each other here. There's a couple things I wrote down here is you'll be working with community development financial institutions. How many families do we expect this program to be able to serve? What's the fundraising goal? All that kind of stuff. Because I know we have 1 million. But you guys have said it's more than that. It's going to be more than that. So let's talk about that.
You wanna talk about the
So the
regional?
$1 million sounds like so much money,
Mhm.
and it's really not.
It's really not.
So it's $500,000 a year. So it's a 2-year
Mhm.
grant. And really what that's doing is helping us operationalize and have capacity, right? So that's just the money that we need as organizations through this collaborative that we're doing, and the other ones that we're working with as well, to kind of help pay for what it takes to make this happen. There's legal fees, there's, all kinds of things.
Mhm.
And then we have an additional goal of raising just a little bit more than $8 million as, again, just for this initial first step, this pilot or this demonstration. And between what we're planning to do regionally and then what Habitat's doing, I think we're looking for this first try to reach about 200 home buyers.
Nice.
So small in scale. I mean, we need to reach, in order for the Black home ownership rate in Minnesota to be the same as the national Black home ownership rate, it's around 20,000 new Black home buyers. So again, a small percentage, but a step forward to show that this is a way that we can move forward and help close the gap. So,
yeah. And then for Habitat, our goal was to close on about 20 foundational Black homeowners every year for the next 5 years, because we just launched our strategic plan last year. And we had a focus on racial equity and closing the gap. And this was just perfect timing, because this is what the foundation was already built on. And this partnership was just so organic. But we want to make sure that we're also making some impact in our program, our specific program. And our goal is 20 every year for the next 5 years. So we hope we can get more. But I do think in partnership with the regional approach, that will allow us to definitely move towards that closing the gap for our foundational Black consumers. Yeah.
Well, this is exciting stuff. Let's see. We've kind of gone all over the map here. I think that is what I had written down to discuss here today. Do you guys have anything to add?
No, I think, we want to learn. I think this is important that we're taking this approach because we don't know, even for Habitat, if this is the right approach, right? We want to pause a little bit once this cohort is completed. We want to do a lessons learned. How is it working?
Right.
And then pivot as we need to, and keep, designing and reimagine as we go along. But I do think what this approach, just by listening and learning and then applying, and then, is something new for Habitat, because we've had this one model for a long time. And we're finally coming to the realization that this model does not work for everybody. So what I think is that if we build something that will work for those that we have not served the best, you build something for them, it's a win for everybody, right? Because everybody else was succeeding. If you look at our numbers, right? 85% of the people that we work with were from the BIPOC community, but we had less than 8% for those that were foundational Black. We're not okay with that number. So we do want to build something that's going to work for this group, for this demographic, and then it's a win for everybody. And what we're not saying is that it's exclusive for foundational Black. It's very much, and it's still an inclusive program. But we have to understand and learn what the challenges were, so we can really be inclusive to make sure they can get success too.
And that's something that I think about a lot. It's like, you want everyone to be able to succeed and be successful in the economy that we have, in the environment that we have.
Absolutely.
And home ownership is part of it. And, needing some help to get over the hurdles of down payment assistance and that kind of stuff, that's legit. Because if you're paying market rent, you can pay a market mortgage.
Absolutely.
Most likely.
Yes.
So, anyways, this is just really good work, and I really thank you guys for making it more understandable. So I think that's it for this episode. If you're interested in exploring home ownership for your own household, you can take a home buying class and enlist the help of a home ownership advisor for free by going to our website, hocmn.org. Our advisors and educators are embedded in organizations across the state, and they'll work with you to help you get mortgage ready, educate you on the buying process from A to Z, and walk with you through every step of the process. I want to thank our guests today, Shereese Turner and Brooke Walker. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. In closing, I want to acknowledge our sponsors, Associated Bank, Midwest One Bank, Old National Bank, and a new sponsor for Season 2, Bremer Bank. Thanks to each of these organizations for their support. All right, thanks, and have a great spring. Sounds pretty good, huh?
Yeah.